In this video, I will spend almost 30 minutes to talk in detail again about my dissatisfaction with Neuvillette and certain storylines. Additionally, this video is made in response to comments on the previous video why I don't like Neuvillette, as I have limited personal energy and cannot reply individually, but because everyone's discussions are serious, so I can't ignore this. Therefore, I plan to directly reply some of the responses and doubts from the previous video and this one. Some responses are friendly while some are not friendly, but that's okay. I'll try to respond to each one. If I missed any, please feel free to remind me. Thank you very much. Next, I'll restate and analyze these arguments in an easily understandable manner and provide my answers, marking them with numbers for everyone to watch comfortably. Let's dive right into it. Alright, first is number 1. You're just mad because Furina isn't an Archon anymore, and other characters have their own highlights. Neuvillette didn't steal anyone else's highlights. First of all, I don't think I ever said that. This argument obviously ignores all the points I made in my video and arbitrarily speculates on the reasons for my dissatisfaction, and again, arbitrarily defines me. I think I made it pretty clear in the video that my dissatisfaction stems from the scriptwriters letting Neuvillette unreasonably snatch away some highlights that belong to others, making the storyline both unreasonable and unfair. Let me give you an example. In the 4.2 Archon quest, I can't imagine why Traveler, who has already mastered 5 elemental powers, couldn't save Navia when they were escaping from the ruin. I don't understand why I will let Navia, who will easily dissolve in primordial seawater, runs behind me. Clearly, even if Traveler fell, Traveler wouldn't fear the primordial seawater and wouldn't get hurt. I found this part of the storyline very confusing, and moreover, despite Traveler had already mastered 5 elemental powers, none of them were used when rescuing Navia. Yes, you heard that right. A Nemo, Geo, Electro, Dendro, Hydro. Traveler didn't use any of them, making Traveler seem very foolish and almost causing Navia's death. I believe that if you were Traveler at the time, you would have done much better than what Traveler did. So the only explanation here is that because the scriptwriters gave the highlight of saving Navia to Neuvillette, so even though Traveler had already defeated Scaramouche, even though Traveler mastered 5 elemental powers, Traveler's strength is already powerful, but Traveler is unable to rescue Navia here no matter what. Why? Because the highlight of saving Navia has been forcibly arranged to Neuvillette by the scriptwriters, in which cause Traveler is very powerless and unreasonable here. When you realize this fact, you will see how poorly the scriptwriters wrote this part. An easy summary is that, in order to forcibly give Neuvillette the highlight of saving Navia, the scriptwriters had to forcibly lower Traveler's intelligence and strength to achieve the effect of allowing Neuvillette to obtain this highlight of saving Navia. The result of which is very obvious. Traveler, who represented the players, had their highlight forcibly given to Neuvillette by the scriptwriters in an extremely unreasonable way, making Traveler appear very powerless and foolish here. Obviously, this is unfair and unreasonable for both players and Traveler, and this is only just one of my dissatisfactions to Neuvillette, mainly to the scriptwriters and the plot. Let me give you another example. Similarly, I cannot imagine how, after experiencing 500 years, Furina was unable to meet Fossilor's even for the very last time, and even Fossilor's last words to Furina doesn't know whether she heard it or not. Because after those bubbles touched Furina, she remains sitting in her seat, crying silently without showing any reaction. This doesn't seem like Furina heard Fossilor's last words. Perhaps those words were just for the players to see, which is truly frustrating. Additionally, even if Furina did hear Fossilor's last words, I believe it wouldn't be enough. I've always felt that they should at least meet for the very last time and do a proper farewell to each other, which would have been very important for both of them. However, this was not realized. What caused them to not meet for the very last time was undoubtedly the scriptwriters, because once again, they wanted to forcefully give all the time for meetings with Fossilors to Neuvillette alone, which is nauseating. The reason the scriptwriters did this is even more disgusting. They not only wanted Neuvillette to monopolize all the meetings and conversation time with Fossilors, but they also wanted to use their conversations to make many players who are unaware of the truth like their interactions, in order to generate a lot of fanworks and popularity. This is extremely disgusting to me. Let's get back to the point. So I believe phrases like number 1 or those with similar meaning should now be self-destruct. If anything I've said has offended you, I apologize, but I won't back down when facing these remarks. I will reply seriously and dispel any rumors. Okay, then number 2. So what if there's no apology? After the crisis, Neuvillette did compensate Furina. He said he would provide food, clothing, shelter, and support. Even the vision was provided by Neuvillette. Alright, then let's analyze what actually happened in the game. What's the actual situation then? Firstly, regarding the lack of apology, a viewer in the comment section made a very good point. And an apology isn't about what you provide. It's about seriously expressing sorry to the person you have harmed. With a simple phrase like, I'm sorry. This is very important, but obviously they didn't do it. Also, there's a major misconception in number 2 about the vision. Furina's vision was not actually provided by Neuvillette. Strictly speaking, the vision held by all vision holders is not provided by the local authorities. This has been explicitly mentioned in the character voice lines of Raider Shogun. It is not by my will that visions are granted or denied. This sentence has already been made clear that visions are sent by Celestia. This doesn't have to do with the local authorities' will, and include Neuvillette's will that doesn't have any relation with it. To put it easy to understand terms, Celestia has a wishing system that connects to 7 pools. These 7 pools correspond to the 7 elements. Each authority figure's power will automatically connect to the corresponding element, provide energy for the pool. But at the end, designing and responding to people's wish and sending visions through this pool is always Celestia's system. So about Furina's vision, Neuvillette's will has no relation to it, just like Radiant Shogun. But if the scriptwriters later amend the previous text to say that it was distributed by the Archons, then I can't do anything about it. After all, this is not the first or second time Genshin has altered previous text before. But at least for now, responding to people's wish and designing to distribute the visions is Celestia. Next is the food, clothing, shelter, and support mentioned by Neuvillette. Now I'd like to ask you, who cared for Furina after the crisis ended? 5 seconds. 5, 2, 1. Well, it's actually Clarent. Did you get it right? In Furina's story quest, it is explicitly mentioned that after the crisis, Clarent was not satisfied with Furina's current residence, which is the cottage that appears in Furina's story quest. Clarent proposed to replace it with a better place for Furina, but Furina refused. Not only that, Clarent passionately took Furina to parties to prevent her from feeling lonely. As for food, in Furina's story quest in the 4.3 event storyline, Furina has mentioned several times that she has been eating pasta, so there is no relation to Neuvillette in terms of food either. In conclusion, it was actually Clarent who helped Furina. What Neuvillette said about the food, clothing, shelter, and support would just say so. As for him approving Furina's use of the opera house, I won't deny that he did a small favor here. However, I must remind you that the opera house is not solely owned by Neuvillette. Although Furina only plays the role of the Hydro Archon, her contributions and sacrifices for Fontaine over the past 500 years fully justify the title of Hydro Archon. She rightfully has the privilege to use the opera house, and communication with Neuvillette is just a formality and to avoid some little issues. Neuvillette didn't have any deliberate reason to refuse or make things difficult for her here. Additionally, through the words of this NPC, we can also see that while in the eyes of the folk, the opera house was built by Furina. But personally, I still believe that the opera house belongs to Fontaine as a nation, not to individuals. Alright, after saying so much, I think everyone should already have an answer regarding number 2. Also, I want to emphasize that I am not only targeting Neuvillette. My main focus is on the scriptwriters who want to forcefully phrase him and wrote him as inconsistent. Additionally, I hope everyone won't be influenced by these comments that are strongly attacking. These comments usually seem extremely radical and confident and are very attacking. It's easy to be misled. But if you look carefully, you will find that the logic behind them is flawed. Okay, taking a short break. Next up is number 3. Everyone forcefully judges Furina, but they are all forced to do so because they have to save Fontaine and its people. This doesn't count as bullying. This is a rather serious topic. First, let's not discuss the reasons why everyone did this, but focus solely on what Furina experienced during the trial. She was deceived, forcefully judged, and risked her life touching the primordial seawater. During this time, she was extremely frightened, emotionally shattered, and later even broke down in tears. Looking at what she endured, there's no doubt that Frina was subjected to bullying. I have had similar experiences during elementary school, although fortunately it only lasted for a short time, but I still tend to be sensitive to such behavior. Back to the point, let's return to number 3. Does this mean that as long as everyone has legitimate reasons, it doesn't count as bullying? I must emphasize that the definition of bullying is not just about the motive or purpose of an action, but more importantly, the harm caused to the victim by the action itself. Here I'd like to quote a remark made by a Genshin content creator about this storyline. Oh, so after bullying a little girl, you can just gloss over it without even needing to apologize, as long as you slap a label of justice and redemption on it? Bullying and humiliation cannot be rationalized. Regardless, apologizing to Frina for the forced trial is necessary for everyone, but clearly no one in the plot did that. Especially the two people who know the whole truth, Neuvillette and Traveler. Here, I want to remind you that only Neuvillette and Traveler know about Frina's 500 years of suffering and the truth. I don't understand why they didn't explain it to other people and Fontaine to change their negative impression of Frina at the trial, resulting in Frina to receive disapproving looks from others and Poisson. Even if you don't mention this, Neuvillette and Traveler's actions here are extremely unsuccessful. They are not even as reasonable as Clorin and Navia, who don't know the truth. Although they don't know Frina's truth and hardships, they still offer some help and comfort to Frina to some extent, treating her as a friend. Looking back, Neuvillette and Traveler appear both unreasonable and infuriating. Additionally, it's true that I'm a crazy fan of Frina. I won't deny that at all, but it doesn't affect my view and understanding of things. Just because I didn't mention it doesn't mean I ignore it. Of course, I know the contributions Neuvillette and Traveler have made in the story, but similarly, some people cannot ignore the significant issues they also have in the story. Obviously, the scriptwriters haven't handled these issues well, or maybe it's not that they can't handle these issues professionally, but rather, they simply don't want to. They deliberately write storylines that anger and dissatisfy players, sparking debates and disputes among players, and thereby generating topics and heat to profit from it, stirring up arguments among players, causing internal discord among players. That's what they want to see. Here's number 4. Skirk didn't even know about the will attack incident. She found out and came, actually helping us defeat it. Skirk had no problems. So, this is the way you see Skirk. This made me very shocked. I think I need to help you organize what happened in the story and explain, for you to better understand. First, the will is Skirk's master's pet, and it's explained in the story that Skirk's master entrusted Skirk with the responsibility of supervising for the will. Now, because of Skirk's negligence, the will almost destroyed Fontaine and even dissolved some of its residents. Just simply arrange the logic, Skirk bears significant responsibility for this disaster. Suppose you had a dog and it went out and injured or even killed someone. As the caretaker of the dog, it must be your primary responsibility. You don't need to say absurd things to defend Skirk, Neuvillette, and the scriptwriters to confuse others. Skirk isn't a child. As the caretaker of the will, she must be accountable for her negligence. Just like Child was wrongly accused but still being judged. The main culprits behind the Fontaine disaster are two: the heavenly principles that said a prophecy and Skirk who made it a reality. Furthermore, Skirk's most disgusting aspect isn't even here. I want to ask you, do you remember the residents of Poisson? Do you remember Melusine Silver? Yes, other Fontaine people were saved, but they were dissolved because the will accelerated the rise of the primordial seawater, ultimately causing them not to survive. Now, as one of the main culprits, Skirk, I think I need to remind you of what she said in her lines. Throughout the entire conversation with Neuvillette, Skirk expressed no remorse, even saying, "I simply did not have anything to say to the weak." I don't know if you understand what this means. It means Skirk doesn't care about the disaster that befell Fontaine and the deaths of these ordinary people. She sees ordinary people as ants and doesn't care about them or their lives. Now, do you understand why I criticized Neuvillette for speaking to her too mild? If you had paid attention to the plot, you would know that at least in the performance of 4.2, Skirk is a thorough villain. As the caretaker of the well, her negligence led to the disaster in Fontaine, the deaths of Poisson residents. Neuville's two bodyguards, Meluse and Silver, died trying to rescue the Poisson residents, and she didn't care at all about their deaths. I don't know if, after remembering all the people who died and were harmed due to Skirk's negligence, you can still say Skirk doesn't have any problems. Here, I would like to mention, in the comments of the previous video, someone said the Chinese community is disappointed because male characters take the highlights instead of making female characters the focus. I think you misunderstood. From my perspective, this has nothing to do with gender. The Chinese community simply hates poorly shaping characters, and Skirk is an example. Back to the point, Neuvillette's only reason for not judging Skirk, the culprit, is that Skirk is extremely powerful, and her strength probably surpasses Neuvillette. Now looking back at Neuvillette's voice line and character design seems very ridiculous and funny. When wrongly accused, Child wanted to resolve the injustice against him with force. When facing Child, who was wrongly accused but less powerful than himself, Neuvillette immediately acted and subdued him. In contrast, when facing Skirk, one of the powerful culprits who disregards human life, Neuvillette not only dares not to judge Skirk, but also speaks to her in a submissive tone. That's why in the previous video I said his character design, Let the Mighty Be Humble, is more accurately described by, I only dare to disdain all who are smaller than myself, and I dare not disdain those who are too powerful than myself. Obviously, the scriptwriters failed to resolve these issues in Neuvillette's character design properly. What he said doesn't match what actually happened. As for why I associated his lines judging the Archons and judging Farina, I am sorry because this is the closest situation I can think of to this line. I think after all I have said, you can understand that I really can't imagine the submissive him daring to judge the villain Skirk, whose strength is no less than the Geo Archon and the Electro Archon. So this line was only written by the scriptwriter to establish a very powerful character design for him, but unfortunately, it was not reflected in the actual plot. Next is number 5, Child as a stepping stone. Child is weaker than Zhongli and Raiden Shogun, but you have no problem with that? But it's different for Neuvillette, truly double standards. Firstly, you misunderstood one thing. Saying Child is a stepping stone doesn't mean he's weaker than Neuvillette and therefore a stepping stone. It's because he was easily defeated by Neuvillette. I must remind you that in the storyline of Genshin Impact so far, the only instance of one playable character defeating another within seconds is Neuvillette defeating Child. Zhongli and Raiden Shogun are indeed powerful. They have never defeated or defeat any other playable character within seconds in the storyline. Remember Kazuha in the Inazuma storyline? Although he had the power from his friend's vision, at that time, his strength isn't stronger than Child's. Even so, Kazuha managed to block Raiden Shogun's Musou no Hitotachi. Despite a huge gap in their strength, he wasn't defeated within seconds by Raiden Shogun, nor did he become a stepping stone for her. The storyline didn't intentionally highlight Raiden Shogun's strength by having Kazuha defeated by her within seconds. Clearly, Inazuma's storyline doesn't bias towards someone. This is fair. However, it's different on Fontaine. The scriptwriters deliberately arranged for him to defeat Child within seconds to showcase his powerful. I'm not saying it's unreasonable for Neuvillette to defeat Child with his strength, but I'm just reminding you that Neuvillette is currently the only one with a record of defeating another playable character within seconds. From this, you can undoubtedly see how biased and favored the scriptwriters are towards him. Zhongli, Raiden Shogun, and any other playable character have never received such treatment. Since we are talking about Child, I'd like to mention that he's one of my favorite male characters. However, I won't ignore his flaws just because I like him. In the Lyra storyline a long time ago, Child released the demon god, endangering many lives. But I won't deny this fact, I still like him because of his gentleness towards his family and friends. But I won't deny the mistakes he's made. I admit he's made mistakes, but still like him. I think admitting the flaws of someone you like shouldn't be a bad thing. Alright, we are finally done with the serious stuff. It's time for something funny. Number 6. Did you know that Neuvillette isn't the only strong character? You tell lies again. Hu Tao, Xiao Xianren, or Al Haiden can clear the abyss faster than Neuvillette. indeed, I apologize. I misspoke. Let me correct myself. Neuvillette isn't the only strong character. In fact, he's the only silly character. Come on, I can't understand why some people still deny Neuvillette's strength and miHoYo's favoritism towards it. Do these gifts not make it obvious enough? Of course I know that Neuvillette isn't the highest damage dealer or the fastest in solo situations. I have never claimed otherwise. In fact, Riosley at 6-6 R5 deals more damage than Neuvillette in solo situations, and in team-wide 6-6 R5 speedruns, Neuvillette isn't the fastest. But do you only measure strength by beating single enemy and burst damage? I apologize if my previous video comparing Ayato and Neuvillette misled you. I want to reiterate, Neuvillette isn't just stronger than Ayato. Others who tell Lini, Raiden Shogun, Xiao of Xianyun, Navia. Neuvillette is stronger than any main DPS character you can think of. Only a Haiden can compete with him slightly at C0R0. And Neuvillette is extremely powerful with a 360-degree coverage and practical combat, a single-person setup and elemental skill, Alt Activate, dealing per damage and capable of anti-air attacks, unafraid of any enemies except elemental immunity. And Neuvillette's greatest strength isn't even his damage, it's his impeccable mechanics. He's also T0 against single targets and is undoubtedly the ceiling against groups. Here, let me quote a Genshin content creator's description of Neuvillette's strength. This is Neuvillette. Under the condition of equipment graduate with 40,000 HP, 200% crit damage, up to 80% crit rate, self-healing, unlocking shield level resistance at C1, and completely lifting team composition restrictions. Its attack range diameter can cover most of the Abyss map, equivalent to 1.5 times the impact area of characters like Ayato, Ganri, and Ventiza. Each charge attack deals damage similar to the vaporized damage of an equally skilled Yoimiya. He can also do vaporized reactions, doesn't rely on teammates, doesn't rely on main attributes of the equipment, unafraid of control, unafraid of damage loss, just equip prototype Ember that can casually play. And with a maximum investment of 300 pulse, it becomes a complete individual. During combat, only need to drop droplets then charge attack. And yes, one click, screen clear. So when I see number 6 sentence, I am truly shocked. Even in a generally more strength-oriented Chinese community, no one will deny Neuvillette's position as the ceiling of strength because, after all, he's indeed much stronger than anyone else. If you still think Neuvillette isn't the ceiling at this point, well, I'm not sure what else to say. But please refrain from casually slandering others when you're not familiar with the details. Also, I'd like to briefly mention a mistake from my previous video. I said Zhongli is the strongest support. I apologize, I mistyped. What I meant to say is Zhongli is the strongest shield support. And while we are at it, the strongest support at C0 should be Zhongli and Kazuha, and at C2 or higher is Furina. Nahida leans more towards a sub-DPS role, so she's not included. Okay, let's get back on track. Following the topic of Neuvillette's strength as the ceiling, let's talk about his revenue. Compared to 2021 and 2022, Genshin Impact's revenue has obviously decreased. In response to this phenomenon, there's a funny saying circulating in the Chinese community. Neuvillette has 3 shots. The first shot sends away all characters, causes slumping revenue for all characters, as seen in the rerun revenue of characters like Ayato, Sino, and Raiden Shogun. The second shot sends away new characters because they are not as strong as Neuvillette, leading to a slump in revenue for all except for popular characters like Furina. For example, Riosley, Navia, and Chiori, and Xianyun barely manages to maintain revenue for her decent support abilities and open world capabilities. And the third shot sends away Neuvillette himself. The revenue during his first rerun was bad. Yes, Neuvillette's rerun revenue isn't the lowest, but it's definitely not good either. I had the global revenue chart in my previous video, so I won't go into detail here. Here, I also like to briefly mention the mindset behind the Spirit Abyss and Genshin Impact. The designers of the Abyss are quite clever. They intentionally designed the current Abyss difficulty to be low in order to deceive players, constructing an illusion that both old and new characters can easily clear Abyss. This weakens players' impression that Neuvillette is indeed the ceiling of strength, thus squeezing out their remaining value and revenue, commonly known as whale baiting. I must say, it's quite cunning to maximize profits in a situation where they only want to make Neuvillette stronger. Let's get back to the point. So, with the story and strength receiving so much love from miHoYo, Neuvillette's first rerun only achieved this result. It's truly amusing, but perhaps this is just a retribution for all the mistakes miHoYo has made over the years. Alright, If you have watched to this point, I really appreciate your patience and earnest. I responded to number 1 through 6 along with many internal arguments, as well as some analysis of certain storylines. I believe I have addressed most of the doubts regarding the previous video. Lastly, I want to emphasize that my criticism isn't solely directed towards Neuvillette. My main focus is on the scriptwriters and miHoYo that caused these injustices and inconsistencies in the storyline. Neuvillette's unreasonable on both storyline and strength, 4.2 misaligned values, and the unfair treatment of other characters. Despite all this, my core idea remains consistent with the previous video. I seriously hope certain unfair and unreasonable occurrences cease, both in terms of storyline and strength. And I also hope that every character receives equal and fair treatment. That wraps up the content for this video. Of course, this isn't the end. As a player deeply hurt by Genshin Impact, I have much more to say to Genshin Impact and miHoYo. I will strive to update similar content in the future. These are all my personal opinions, and I thank you for watching. If there are any mistakes or things I missed in the video, feel free to point them out. Your thoughts are welcome in the comment section. Even if they are not friendly, it won't hurt me. I'll still respond earnestly. Lastly, I wish you a happy and joyful life every day.